Well,
I mean,
since we're there, let's just go there. 49ers versus Browns. And I kind of agree with your dad. I think Jim Schwartz is probably the best pickup that the Cleveland Browns made in the offseason because their defense dismantled the 49ers offense, which granted, you're going to say Christian McCaffrey got hurt. Trent Williams got hurt. Deebo Samuel got hurt, which Deebo Samuel, shoulder, and Trent Williams, ankle, day-to-day. Trent Williams finished out the game. Christian McCaffrey's getting an MRI. We'll just address that now. But the Cleveland Browns, and I can't believe I'm going to say this about them, they also had injuries that mattered. Deshaun Watson to PJ Walker, there's a drop-off there. And the game, they didn't win the game because of PJ Walker. They won the game despite PJ Walker. Nick Chubb, who is arguably, before he got hurt, the best running back this season, wasn't out there. Jerome Ford was out there. Another huge drop-off. I think they had a ton of injuries on their offensive line. David Njoku's playing with burns on his face, which he's out there, but I'm sure that's not fun. The Browns' defense looked very good. And Myles Garrett won on 31% of his snaps against Trent Williams, which is the highest amount that Trent Williams has given up. Which, granted, Trent Williams is injured. But an injured Trent Williams, if he's still out there, is as good as your average offensive tackle because Trent Williams is insane.
Yeah.
The Browns' defense came in. They knew where the holes were before Christian McCaffrey got hurt because they were dominating before Christian McCaffrey got hurt, before Deebo got hurt. And then when those guys got hurt, they were like, oh, now they're Swiss cheese on offense. And I think they knew what to do and they won the game. And not only that, they showed the rest of the NFL that the 49ers can be beaten. Because I talked about this last week. Looking at the Bengals schedule, yes, they've got the 49ers. Yes, they've got the Chiefs and the Bills. They've got a bunch of hard teams, Ravens, whatever. The only team on there that scared me was the 49ers. And now they don't scare me as much, especially if CMC and Deebo are out.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, maybe this is maybe what derails the 49ers season.
Maybe. I mean, it's like you said, it's definitely interesting that you said that San Francisco losing makes everybody in the NFL realize that they are beatable, because I knew like deep down that the Eagles were beatable and they lost this week, and we'll talk about that with Stan later on in the week, but I knew that the Eagles were beatable. It was just a matter of when. San Francisco, the way that they were winning games, it almost felt like they were unbeatable. Like there was going to be no team to stop them. And granted, injuries plagued a lot of the game yesterday. And yes, Moody did end up missing that kick. And there was like a lot of factors with it. But nonetheless, I mean, San Francisco still lost the game. And Brock Purdy did not look good. Regardless of like CMC and everything else, like you should expect from like a star quarterback like Brock Purdy is expected to be, or, you know, franchise guy type thing. You know, we've talked about Brock Purdy multiple times before, but going like 10 for 31 and not like, you know, producing at all, like it just reminds me of, you know, some college football out there. He's back to, you know, throwing, you know, like some of these freaking Pitt quarterbacks are. And, you know, and I'm dissing on Pitt because, you know, I love my boys at Pitt, but, you know, Phil, you know, Dracovic threw like 10 for 30. It was like 10 of 31 and, you know, and had like 3 touchdowns against Cincinnati, still lost the game. But like, it's just nonetheless, it's like you're going back to like numbers like that. And it makes you wonder, it's like, yes, you know, the injuries plagued it. How good is Cleveland's defense? How bad is Brock Purdy? How good is Brock Purdy? Because because we've talked about this before, you know, you take Brock Purdy out of that and you throw in just another quarterback. Will they do just as good in that scheme? Probably. Is Brock Purdy as good as we think he is? Or, I mean, the big test will be this week. San Francisco's not on bye, correct? They're not on bye this week.
I don't know. They're playing the Vikings, actually.
Yeah, so regardless of, you know, the Vikings, because the Vikings are very mediocre this year. They're not very eventful. You know, they beat the freaking Bears 19-13 in a very exhausting and a big yawn of a game.
Mm-hmm.
but like this will be his big test, because if Debo and Christian McCaffrey are rolled out, he'll have to rely on Kittle and a lot of those other backup guys. And if he still doesn't produce the same way against Minnesota, who doesn't have the best defense in comparison to Cleveland, then maybe you should really consider, your future. Because, like, granted, Brock Purdy is good. Don't get me wrong, Brock Purdy is good. But is he used to, like, would he be used to in the future, like, when these guys retire or they move on or whatever, will he be able to produce again?
Mhm.
But I mean, I might be jumping to conclusions here because, like I said, Cleveland's defense is very, very good. And my dad did say it, and the reason I got mad about it is just because it pains me to say that Cleveland has something good on their team, because me and Josh both can agree that Cleveland has always been the stinker of the AFC up until recently, all of a sudden. And like more recently, they obviously, even made it to close to the top of the division a couple of years ago, beat the Steelers in the wild card. They've had good teams, and now they're, back on a train where they definitely could make playoffs this year.
Yeah, no, the Cleveland Browns. So something I've noticed a lot of in the media today was a lot of the talking heads were saying, well, it was raining, so that's why Brock Purdy, like, he couldn't hold on to the ball and he fumbled. And okay, yeah, that probably had an effect. You know who wasn't allowed to have that excuse is Joe Burrow when they played week 1. People brought that up, and everyone was like, well, Joe Burrow's supposed to be this elite guy. He should be able to deal with the rain. So is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's supposed to be this great guy. So, okay, I'm willing to grant them both the rain issue, but they're both quarterbacks have that. And Deshaun Watson played like crap in week 1 too because of the rain. However, now that we've got the rain issue out of the way, we've got to see what has been consistent with the Cleveland Browns. What have they been doing that is allowing them to, if not win, stay in these games? And it's their defense. Their defense has been very good in every game that they have played. Myles Garrett is a beast. They've got great corners who, Ward, I believe, is still on there. Greedy Williams. They've got great players. They just have never had a schemer. They've never had someone who could put them where they needed to be and get them to the quarterback, help them break up stuff the way they needed to. Now they have that in Jim Schwartz, and these guys' talent is being used where it needs to be. So I do think we have to give the Cleveland Browns credit as one of the top defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely goes without saying that they are. I mean, their worst game, and I mean, like, all defenses and offenses and teams have really bad games here and there. I think their worst game this season so far was that Ravens win when they beat them 28-3. I mean, the offense really couldn't get going. They couldn't really stop Baltimore. But I mean, if you go back and you look at all of the games, I mean, 3 of their games have all been division games, and they've lost 2 division games, one against the Ravens and one against the Steelers. The Steelers game, that was just like the biggest bloodbath I've ever seen in my life. Like, that game was crazy because it was just a bunch of defense. And the Ravens game, and then like even like, week 1, Joe Burrow was still dealing with that injury. It's a calf injury, right?
Yeah.
It was a calf injury.
He
was dealing with that calf injury, and like, they shut down the Bengals week 1, and they only let them up 3. But I mean, like, even then, like, they only allowed 3 against the Titans. They really were, stopping on San Francisco. Like, this defense is very good. And I will say this, like, if Cleveland can stay consistent, and yes, maybe they lose some of their division games down the road here. Like, obviously they're 1-2 in the division right now, but they're still 3-2 overall. I mean, they might be in for a good season. I mean, granted, we never know what happens in these division games, because you could expect one thing and then the other thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for all like, I don't even know. I mean, like, it's just one of those things where you honestly just really never know when it comes to division games. When it comes to non-division game stuff, you can kind of have an idea. This week, it was very hard to predict because obviously nobody expected both 5-0 teams to go down, but division games are very different. So once Cleveland starts rolling for the rest of the season, I definitely think that the defense and everything will definitely be able to figure out some stuff here.
So. Yeah, I'm just going to finish it off with the Browns defense is not something to be overlooked. So Cleveland Browns fans, congrats. Thanks for watching that video, guys. If you want to check out a most recent full episode of No Buts About It, that's going to be right over here. Yeah, right there. Check that out. And if you just want to see more short clips, we're going to have one right over here for you to watch. Check out No Buts About It on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, so you can listen to us on the go. Once again, have a great day and go do something nice for someone.